All right, still getting situated here a little bit. This is far and away maybe the least prepared and most structured that I've had for a podcast yet. This is a little spur of the moment. I typed up some stuff I wanted to get to, but really this is going to be a lot of freelancing and off the cuff conversation here. Um, Couple things I want to get into. Obviously, the MDHL wrapped up its season over the weekend. Media day recaps I want to touch on, some big takeaways from that over the last couple days. And then, as I teased on last week's podcast, getting you my top 25 preseason rankings leading into the upcoming season. And then also going to have a little fun with some over unders and projecting win totals for those 25 teams. So, let me start first with the MDHL. As I mentioned, didn't catch any of the action, but looking at the box scores, looking at how they competed against some of the programs that were there, I don't know if you could have a better showing without winning a game. And I don't mean that in the slightest at all. These types of showcases is just not about wins and losses. So the fact that they went 0-3 really doesn't matter or phase me at all when you look at their body of work and what they accomplished there. They played the 26th ranked team in the country in Chicago Mission, lost to them 5-4 in overtime. Like, okay, you're in the hunt, you're competing. Good back and forth there. You take them to extra time, and coin flip doesn't go your way, so to speak. That's a really good Chicago Mission team too. That Mission team beat Little Caesars 4-1, beat VH 6-3, and then beat the Sioux Indians 5-0, all at the Maha Showcase to start the season. They also got wins over Honey Baked 3-1, OJG 4-1, CompuWare 7-0. They've really beaten just about everybody in the state of Michigan. So with the MDHL, with a really strong showing against that Mission team, 5-4, very much in the mix with a lot of the very comparable to a lot of the 18U AAA teams that you see here in the state too. So, and then when you consider the fact that that MDHL group is, for lack of a better phrase, a bit of a hodgepodge, right? There's not a lot of practice time. They're not skating on the ice 3-4 times a week and then playing games on the weekends. You kind of lack maybe some of that structure. So, for the most part, you're kind of dumping the pucks out and letting the chips fall where they may. And you're in a 1-goal game there with a top team in the country. Followed that up with a 4-3 shootout loss to the number 4 ranked team in the country in Culver Academy. Culver, obviously very well known nationally, and again another strong showing there where you're competing, and again it's a coin flip basically is what I always like to call it, where you take those games to overtime or into a shootout, and you're really deciding the winner and loser based on luck of the draw almost sometimes, if a certain puck bounces your way or doesn't bounce your way. So and then they rounded out their 3 games on the weekend with Stansted College, which is a program out of Canada. And looking them up real quick, there wasn't a whole lot of information on Stansted, but as far as I can tell, ranked 11th in the country in Canada among that age group. So again, real strong showing, knowing a lot of the prospects playing for the MDHL, playing in that showcase. The usual suspects, Cam Duffney, who I got a chance to talk to earlier this week, and Larson Miller was another one out there representing. So the MDHL, real strong showing, and really just good for, not just good for high school hockey, but good for the state of Michigan to kind of showcase some of the high end 18U talent that we do have in the state. So I'll shift gears here real quick. Media day. Got a chance to go to some high school hockey media days this week. The MIHL was on Sunday. KLAA had its media day Monday night. The OAA had its media day yesterday. So it's been a busy week, very productive week, good week. Those are the only 3 that I was aware of. There may be some others around the state. So if if there are, like, feel free to DM me and make me aware of them and let me know. If you're not, at some of these leagues around the state, I talked to a buddy of mine who said his league doesn't do one, and that's okay. But if you're not, I'd strongly recommend doing it as a conference. Get organized amongst the coaches, and put it on. Maybe not necessarily for yourselves and for the program, but for your players. I think it's a really good opportunity for the kids to get reps, public speaking, comfortable answering questions off the cuff, comfortable in front of a camera, speaking about things they're passionate about. It's all just kind of good practice, good reps. And then ultimately, if you're connecting with local media, local beat writers and things like that, it's super easy content then for them to turn around and produce. So it's just a win-win. Um, I don't know that there's really any breaking news or earth-shattering, tidbits to come out of any of the media days I attended. But like I said, it's just good practice and an overall good experience for the kids, and adds another level of exposure, right? That I think lends itself to the high school circles. So again, if that's something your leagues haven't done in the past, the MIHL, as high as I am on them, this year was the first year they've done it. Usually they're kind of the pioneers and at the forefront of a lot of this stuff in high school hockey. And this year they just finally got it off the ground. So I think a lot of other conferences around the state could benefit in kind of following suit. And those first couple of years, it might even be a little awkward or a little challenging where the coach himself is asking his players questions about the upcoming season. But like I said, ultimately, it'll start to snowball. You'll get a little more buy-in each year, more media outlets coming, and things like that. So if you haven't done it, if you haven't really thought about it or given it any consideration, I'd strongly recommend. A couple big takeaways, and this is kind of what I meant by maybe some lack of preparation as far as specifics. I wanted to say. Usually, I have them bulleted out, and I don't want to miss anything on the podcast, and doing it live makes it a bit of a challenge sometimes. But a couple big takeaways that I wanted to know from multiple conferences. A lot of first time coaches in high school hockey making the jump from AAA, making the jump from travel, and jumping into the high school hockey circles for the first time. One that really stood out to me was Chad LaRose at De La Salle, and just got some really interesting thoughts and feedback from them. Chad spoke pretty candidly about just how different the high school landscape is, and some of the rules and regulations, limitations that are in place, where the travel season, as we all know, started late August, early September, and they've been on the ice 4 or 5 days a week playing in showcases and tournaments. High school, you don't really get that on ice with your team, group setting, implementing structures and systems and things like that until right now. So you're maybe a little bit farther behind the curve there. But I asked him, how do you make up that difference? And for a lot of coaches who have been inundated in the high school circles, your Ryan Ossenmachers, your Kurt Kavistos, Rick Gadwa, some of those guys who have been in high school hockey for as long as they have. Brandon Kalnicki is another one. Well, they know it well enough, so they've developed a system and a structure that works for their program, 24/7, 365. For a guy like LaRose, and it being his first time into the high school circles, he's kind of learning on the fly, leaning on other coaches, he even mentioned leaning on his players for guidance and how to, like I said, maybe make up that difference a little bit in the spring, summer, fall, meeting individually with players, meeting in small groups. You can do on ice, small stuff, 4 players at a time, to kind of get on the ice and get involved with them, but still following those MHSAA guidelines. So it can be a difficult challenge or hard waters to navigate for first time high school hockey coaches who have been so used to, like I said, the AAA and travel circles. But anytime those coaches make the jump and do come into the high school circles, I welcome it. I'd love to see more of it and see those guys get involved and stay involved ultimately. So definitely interested to see, particularly, what Chad does there at De La Salle, and obviously a couple others that I got the chance to talk to over the past couple of days. The other thing, that really stood out to me too was there's just tons of very well spoken young men. I tweeted this out maybe after the MIHL media day, and just blown away at how at 16, 17, 18 years old, how articulate some of these kids are. And these questions weren't prepared. They didn't know what was coming. These are very much ad libbing on the spot, and just some very passionate, well thought out comments. I think back to when I was that age, and I was just a smart ass. If you'd have put me on the spot like that, I'd have come up with something snarky and dumb and witty and just try to get a laugh out of everybody, or done the old Ricky Bobby. I don't know what to do with my hands. Um, so, and it didn't matter if it was Turner England at Brother Rice or Carson Cadrigal at Stony Creek. Like, they all were just very well thought out, super articulate, smart young guys that just kind of overall just blew me away. Very impressive. So, and I asked some tough questions. I tried to be thought provoking and put them on the spot with some stuff, make them think a little bit. Another comment I made on Twitter just about some of my favorite questions to ask were just asking the players questions about other players on the team or the impact that they had on the team. And it's one of my favorites. I go back to right out of college, one of my first jobs. I was a part-time writer for the Detroit Red Wings, and one of my assignments was to do a story on Stephen Weiss. This was back 10 years ago now. And I said, well, what if Stephen Weiss isn't available to the media? And he says, well, if you're writing a story on Weiss, Weiss is the last person you want to talk to. They don't talk about themselves. If you want quotes on a player, you go to other players to talk about that player. And it's just very much on par for hockey players. If you ask us a question about ourselves, it's a little uncomfortable. We don't like to brag about ourselves or talk ourselves up. But if you ask me about my teammate, my defensive partner, my line mate, or something like that, I'll go on and on about how impactful they are and how the plays that they make and are capable of doing. If I'd have asked Cadrigal, that was a name I'll go back to, or Charlie Price, if I had asked him, hey Charlie, how big was that goal you scored? He's going to go, well, yeah, it was a nice goal. I saw the net. I shot the puck. Now if I ask Charlie Price, or if I ask his teammate that same question, hey, Charlie Price scores that big goal, tell me about, oh yeah, Charlie's a clutch guy. He's always scoring big goals for us, comes up in big moments. He's been doing that since he started. Like, you just get more in-depth, articulate answers when you start asking them about their teammates. So that was a fun little exercise. I definitely enjoyed. Thomas Kimmel for Cranbrook, talking about Michael Houghton and some of that back and forth. You just get these really genuine answers and appreciative of it. I forget, last night at the OAA, I asked that same question. He said, well, I don't really want to gas up my teammate here. I don't want to pump his tires too much, but you also do want to give him credit for what they're capable of. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. I definitely enjoyed that. And then my other big takeaway here, and I think this again is kind of what separates or makes high school hockey so unique, is the legacy component to it, the history component to it. I was at KLAA Media Day on Monday, and there were two instances where, who was it? Buchanan for Stevenson was asked just about the program in general, and he referred all the way back to his days watching Tyler Irvine and Dom Lutz and the impact that they had on Livonia Stevenson and the run that they made winning a state title. That was back in 2014. That was 10 years ago. Buchanan would have been 7, 8, 9 years old, but he remembers standing on the glass, watching those games, watching those seniors, and just thinking the world of those guys to now be in those shoes and be on the other side and be able to offer that perspective and know how much it means to the little guys that are fist bumping him as he goes out, to play in his senior year, and the impact that has. That was really cool to hear. I mentioned Cam Duffney earlier. I talked to him quite a bit, not necessarily about his impact on the ice, but his impact off the ice. And he talked about an incoming freshman in Tim Peterson that they expect at Brighton to have a pretty big impact this year. And he said, yeah, like I'm taking him under my wing. He's a guy who had played with my brother before, so I knew him, but now knew of him, but now I'm really more getting to know him as a teammate. He's super talented. I think by the time he's a junior, senior, this could become his team. So it's just kind of that passing of the torch, ownership of the program and its impact on the community. Really something special, really something very unique that I think you only get in high school sports and then obviously in high school hockey. So those are two, a couple big takeaways for me from the last couple media days. Okay, so I posted Petey's preseason top 25 poll yesterday on social media. In case you didn't see it, be sure to check that out. It's available at peteyspicks.com. I think this is probably the first ever top 25 preseason poll in high school hockey that I know of or that I'm aware of. I think the Coaches Association in years past may have done a top 10 overall for the state and then top 10 for each of the three divisions, but I don't know that a top 25 preseason poll has ever been done. So it was definitely unique, definitely a lot of challenges, plenty of critiques and criticism, I'm sure, but we'll get into it here a little bit. I'm going to unveil the top 25. I'll give you my top 25 teams in case you haven't seen it on the website yet. And then I'm also going to get into over-under win totals based on last season's win total. Will that particular team exceed last year's win total? Will they come short of it? We'll kind of get into each one of those 25 teams here as we go. So I'm going to start here. Checking in at number 25 for me is the Saline Hornets. They won 20 games last year in year 3 for Kyle Zagata. That's a pretty high mark. To winning 20 games is no easy feat in the state. I do think they probably take a little bit of a step back from that 20 win total, but I think this could be one of the more successful seasons for the Hornets when you look at playoff implications, regionals, and that breakdown. The senior class that they have has been there for a couple of years now and gone through the entire process with Kyle Zagata over the last 4 years. And I'd mentioned it on previous podcasts and previous stuff I've posted on the website that this season in particular for the Hornets has kind of been a long time coming. And Matteo Idapalo, Aiden Rumer, Blake Woodrell, Tyler Schroeder, a goalie I haven't really talked about much yet on the podcast. He's a super talented kid who's been the starter in net for 2 years already, now entering his 3rd season. I think this can be a big year for the Hornets, potentially contend for a regional title as they should. But I don't know if that would necessarily push them over the 20 win mark. So I do have them going under there. Next up, I'll try to go a little quicker here. Forest Hills Central, I've talked about them at length as well. I think Bill McSween has done a fantastic job with that program. They won 16 games last season. I have them actually going over that mark. And as I'm looking at my over-unders, I do have a lot of West Side teams going over their win totals from last year. I don't know if there's necessarily enough wins to go around for them all to hit the over. But ultimately, like I said, FHC, for a lot of reasons, I like them to exceed that 16 win total from a season ago. 23, I got Escanaba. They won 20 games last season, won a regional title, got to the state tournament. Super young team, I've mentioned before. Last season, a lot of their success was on the shoulders of as many as 3 freshmen. They're now sophomores with a ton of experience under their belt. I expect, hell, I mentioned in the Great Lakes preview, I expect Escanaba to contend and potentially win that conference championship. Can they do that and exceed the 20 win plateau from a season ago? I don't. Long story short, I'm taking the under on that. I think the Great Lakes Conference, and I mentioned in the preview, they're going to kind of cannibalize each other. I think they're going to beat each other up. That's going to make it tough for a team like Escanaba to surpass that 20 win total. 13 is my first at 22 with 13 wins a season ago. That's where the 13 came from. Is my first KLAA team in the top 25. I got Salem checking in at 22. They won 13 games a season ago. I think they go over that. I don't know that they go over it by much. Maybe put them in the 15 to 16 win range. That's a pretty scrappy young team still, I think. They've got some nice pieces, particularly in the back end. I think they'll be strong on the blue line. And they play a tough schedule with that tough, gritty style. They've never really been one to dominate the win column, but they absolutely will contend and compete with anybody they take the ice with this season. So it may not blow me away in total wins, but they are absolutely going to blow you away when you line up across from them. Country Day, that's another team I haven't really talked about a ton this preseason. I got them checking in at 21 overall. Frank Novak, I've mentioned. I do feel like Country Day is kind of getting back onto that statewide scene. They made the state tournament last year with a pretty young group, and didn't really have, outside of Clay Spencer, didn't really have kind of that star power. And I think Spencer coming back this season, the off season he's had, I think he's ripe for a really big season for his senior year, and steps into kind of that star power role where people really start taking note of Country Day. Oh yeah, that's where Spencer plays. Oh, that's where that kid plays. They had 15 wins a season ago, and a good chunk of that coming in the postseason to win that regional championship. I have them going over. I think they could go way over if things break right for them in the Metro League. I think they could. They get on a run in league play and then go on another playoff run. They could exceed 20 wins by this time, by March, basically. So number 20, I got Ann Arbor, Gabriel Richard, Clint Robert. Love what he's done there. I've talked about that ad nauseum as well. A program that he's gotten the Irish to a point of consistency where, turnover doesn't matter, who graduates doesn't matter, outgoing, Ethan Waldo, or Jack Waldo, excuse me, graduating those guys, pushing them on to junior hockey and beyond. They're filling that void with more talent, filling that void with the next crop. Dunphy is kind of that name to know, I think, for the Irish this season. He's kind of stepping into, I would think anyways, the kind of go-to role for Ann Arbor, Gabriel Richard. They won 25 games last season, which is, almost outer worldly as I'm looking at my graphic here. That was the 4th most wins in the entire state. That's tough to duplicate. I mentioned consistency. I don't know that you can consistently win 25 games. That's a tough one to do. So I do have the Irish going under that win total, but ultimately, I think the Metro League is theirs for the taking. I think a regional championship is theirs for the taking. I just think your regular season play could be a little bit tougher than it has in league in years past, where you look at some of the non-conference games and things like that. 25 would be tough to surpass here, I think, this year. So at number 19, I got Northville. This is honestly one of my favorite teams this incoming season. I love what Coach Ryan Ossenmacher has done in very short time there for the Mustangs. Talking to them at KLAA Media Day, Connor Bisotsky, there's a ton of excitement around the program again there for Northville. He's Bisotsky there is a 4-year senior, so he's been around for a long time. He's seen the program kind of go through turbulent times and now in a position where they may enjoy quite a bit of success. They had 10 wins last season. I think they crushed that. I could see them winning as many as 16 or 17 games and really putting themselves in a position to contend in the playoffs too. So knowing Vysotsky, knowing Cole Lafleur is another returner that I'd expect to have a pretty big impact. They've got some young guys, some AAA guys coming in, making the jump that I think is really going to put Northville over the top. They're playing in the gauntlet of the KLAA West, but ultimately, like I said, when you look at the rest of their conference schedule, non-conference opponents, things like that, I think this is a group that's going to win a bunch of games. So again, Northville checking in at number 19 for me. Number 18, there's just a lot of question marks for me around Flint Powers, and rightfully so. After they graduated last year's class that had been together for a number of years, had kind of come up even through the youth hockey days there for the Flint Firebirds, right? That's a pro that class then ultimately kind of culminated with that state championship run last winter. You lose all that. How do you replace all that? Like that's going to be a tough challenge. And I'm not saying that Powers can't. I just don't know what that answer is yet. And I got to kind of see it to believe it, I think, a little bit. And so Powers, a defending state champ, I got him checking in here at 18. That's admittedly probably low, but as I said, like there's just question marks there. I think for Coach Travis Perry, but ultimately the opportunity to answer those questions and shut me up very quickly. So 17, I got Trenton out of the MIHL. Is this my first? Yep, first MIHL team that I'll mention here in the top 25. Trenton, another team I could be kind of sandbagging a little low on, and I guess that's just more because offensively, I haven't seen or don't know of. I mentioned star power there for Country Day. I don't know where that star power is going to come from for Trenton. I know Noah Miklos, Evan Seavey in goal. They've got a great tandem of a junior and senior there in net for the Trojans. But how are you going to produce that offense? Where's that offense going to come from when you're taking on CC, when you're taking on Brother Rice, Grosse Pointe South, Orchard Lake, like that gauntlet of the MIHL against some tough teams where scoring is tough to come by in general. And now it's like, all right, well, who do you lean on for scoring? I think there's just some question marks there again for me, similar to Flint Powers, that I just need more time, need to see more of them, need to see what they look like on the ice before I can really make any strong pushes here one way or the other in my top 25. So at 17, Trenton, they had 20 wins a season ago. I think they're going to be under that a little bit. And playoffs, they've been a mainstay at the, winning regional championships, getting to Plymouth. That could change this season. Maybe they're not a mainstay there at USA Hockey Arena, but they could shut me up too. There's been years in the past where I've doubted the Trojans and then they end up in the state final. So it'll be fun to see. 16. This is one of the more intriguing teams, and I'll get into it in a second. I got Livonia Stevenson, KLAA. They had 19 wins a season ago. I think there's a pretty significant step back from that 19 win total. Very young team. I've mentioned it multiple times. Unofficially the youngest team in the state. There's one senior on the entire roster, and I don't know that anybody has a smaller class of 2024 than that. If you do, please show me. So it's going to be a learning experience, I think, for the Spartans. Dave Mitchell, fantastic coach. I've seen his work firsthand. So if there's anyone who can take on a young group, mold them, weather the storm, the learning curve and ups and downs, take your licks, pick yourself back up and get ready for the next one in a tough KLAA schedule, it's Dave Mitchell, it's Livonia Stevenson. So, I don't think they'll come close to that 19 win total. They'll probably be in the 12 to 13 range is kind of where I have them, maybe a little bit over 500 when the dust settles. But, if you can get to that point with the young team that they have, it's really only going to set you up for success in the program, up for success down the road. So that's where I'm at with Stevenson at 16. Number 15, I have another Saginaw Valley team here with Saginaw Heritage. They had 16 wins a season ago. I mentioned in the Saginaw Valley League preview that I think this is Coach JJ Bamberger's year. I think Heritage kind of gets back on top of the SVL there. Owen Turner is a guy I like out of there. Betcher is another one. So there's some of those younger guys, or were young guys, have kind of taken their licks, learning, growing, playing against tough competition in powers. Midland Dow over the last couple of years. I think Heritage has kind of taken their lumps the last couple of years, learned from it, and now they're in a position where they can kind of take the reins back in the middle of the state there. 16 wins a season ago. I think they definitely go over that, especially if you're going to get to a league championship there, which won't be easy. Powers isn't going away. Bay City is a team I had kind of in my honorable mentions on the fringe with a chance to be in that top 25. Bay City, I think, is going to be really good. So the SVL, I think, is going to be pretty competitive on top of Midland Dow. Like, it's not going to be easy, but ultimately, I think it's one that breaks in favor of Heritage. So number 14, I got Howell, and this is a pretty easy one for me, I think. They had 11 wins a season ago. I think they go way over that. This could be an 18, 19, 20 win team by the time things are done. This is a team that I would almost expect, I think, to win a regional, given the way things have broken out this season. They win a regional, they get to the quarterfinals with a chance to get into the semifinals. That alone, plus the regular season slate that they're going to have, I think they're going to flirt with as many as 20 wins. Talking with Coach Rocky Johnson, his big thing was, we want to play fast. We're going to play with speed. And they're young, they're talented. They, even despite being young, they still have some of those key seniors and leadership to kind of get them through and navigate troubled, any challenging times they may hit this season. But ultimately, I think Howell is going to win a lot of games this year, and maybe some games that you don't expect them to win either. So number 13, I got Byron Center, which let me check. Oh, no, I got, okay, FHC. I was going to say, it looks like my first West Side team, but that's not the case. Number 13, I got Byron Center. Again, this was a state finalist a season ago, but you lose a ton in Nicholas and Breet there from a season ago. You do have the luxury of kind of replacing that with Freusland and Pratt, Cade Pratt there up front. I don't know. It's big shoes to fill. Can Jackson Freusland and Cade Pratt fill that void? It's going to be a challenge. They're super talented. They've had great off seasons. We're studs for Team Green there in the MDHL. They're guys that are capable of filling that void, I think. I might need to see it to fully believe it, though, or to consider them in the state championship hunt once again. But ultimately, they won 28 games a season ago. You graduate that much, for anyone to replicate a 28-win season is tough. But then obviously when you lose potentially two of the better players in the entire state last spring, that's going to be tough to replicate. So I do have them obviously going under that 28-win total, but still very much in the hunt in the OKC, still very much in the hunt at the playoff level as well. Number 12. This is a team I haven't really talked about much so far this offseason, and part of that's a bit of an error on me. I did my conference previews, never once made mention of the independents. I want to say there's probably 6 or 8 independent programs that don't belong to a conference. One of them being the Bay Reps. Bay Reps won 19 games a season ago, have quite a bit coming back from last season too. I was talking with a scout who was speaking pretty highly of some of those top guys. Coleman, Thomas Boynton Fisher, that's a guy I really like a lot. Larson Miller, I mentioned him earlier. He was a tournament team guy for MDHL this fall. So not only do they have talent, but they have like statewide talent that's recognized by some of these fall organizations and doing pretty well. So there's a lot to like here about the Bay reps. My concern is going to be depth, but when your high end is good enough to play and skate with literally anybody in the state, that's going to give you a chance. Thomas Boynton Fisher, he was a big bodied kid, skated well, like hard nosed player. He's a guy who, I think probably fit into that third, fourth line there for MHA this fall. But that type of style, you need that. You need that kind of grit and sandpaper, whether it's at the high school level or potentially junior hockey and beyond. You need a guy like that in your lineup. And then you couple that with Coleman and Miller, who are a little bit more of the skill players. That's a team with a bunch of different roles. And if those roles can all start firing and doing their job at the same time, it's a team that could be really scary. So 19 wins a season ago. I got the 12th ranked Bay reps going over that 19 win total from a season ago. Number 11. All right. I've mentioned it multiple times. I am done sleeping on EGR. I'm all in on East Grand Rapids. Chris Newton, love him. Fantastic guy. Big fan of the program. Obviously, come around on the Pioneers here. Checking in at number 11. They were a state finalist a season ago. They bring back a ton from that team. I've mentioned it, I believe, on the preview on PDspicks.com that I think they get 4 of their top 5 leading scorers back. Brady Ross, McKagan, Millman. Who am I missing there? Hoekstra. Like, I laughed because Millman, Hoekstra, who did I just? McKagan. That trio was the quarterback, running back, receiver on the football team. Obviously, big impact players there for the football program to then make the shift and be big impact players there for the hockey team as well. That's not an easy transition to do. I've done it. I had a football coach who said you can either be a football player that plays hockey or you can be a hockey player that plays football, but you can't do both. It's just 2 different skill sets, 2 different muscle groups. It's 2 completely different sports. So to be able to do both of them and do both of them that well, truly hats off to those guys because I know how hard that transition is. So EGR, not sleeping on them anymore. 15 wins a season ago. They go way over that. I think they might even flirt with 20 wins by the time the dust settles, and potentially may even see them in Plymouth yet again. So it's a lot of pressure, but we'll see how EGR stacks up there. Number 10, I got another West Side team. I go with GRCC here, checking in at number 10. I like the Cougars. I'm high on them this season. I've been talking about them a bunch during the offseason. Braylon Outwater is a top-level forward that I like a lot. Trent Goheen in goal. He was one of the top netminders in the MDHL this fall. Both of those guys coming back for Coach Slobotnik. That's big. The other thing, and this is kind of what I've been sitting on for a while because I didn't know if it was for sure coming to fruition or not. I was kind of holding my breath. GRCC gets Liam Ten Harmsel coming in. Ten Harmsel is a guy I got a sneak peek of at MDHL and then played a few games there with Little Caesars for the last couple months before making the jump to high school hockey. Big, strong, good skating, solid puck mover. Like Ten Harmsel is the real deal. And his ability, I think, is going to put GRCC in a position to win a lot of games and ultimately contend for a state title here come season's end. They had 19 wins a season ago. You've got key returners at all 3 levels. You've got a huge addition there on the blue line. I don't think there's any reason why this team doesn't go over that 19 win total from a season ago. Number 9, we got Marquette. I mentioned the Great Lakes Conference. I feel like they're going to kind of beat each other up. It's going to be hard to get dubs in that league. They play a tough schedule, but ultimately, Marquette is a team that does play a very gritty style, tough to play against, as always. Most UP teams are. Marquette very much on brand there. 18 wins a season ago, similar to Escanaba and even Houghton, I'll get into here in a little bit as well. Wins are going to be tough to come by in the UP. Getting to that 18 win plateau, I don't have Escanaba replicating that 20 wins. I certainly don't have Houghton replicating that 26 wins from a season ago. So I can't expect Marquette here to go north of their win total from a season ago either. Like I said, with that league and the way it's going to kind of eat each other up, I got Marquette going under that 18 win total, checking in at number 9. At number 8, we go from one red M to another red M. I got Orchard Lake St. Mary's from the MIHL. I think this is a big year for the Eaglets. It just kind of feels like their year a little bit. And I'm hearing nothing but great things about Will Keene in net. I've talked about him a couple times so far on the podcast and written about him on the website. He's a guy who I don't know that I've seen a goalie with that much hype with such few starts. And I don't mean that as, a slight by any stretch of the imagination, because I think he's the real deal. And I just mean that really says a lot about what Coach Brian Clanow had in net a season ago, that maybe kept Will from getting a couple more starts. And then obviously stepping into the spotlight here this year, really, you talk about like quarterback development, drafting a rookie quarterback and then developing him for a year or two before you hand over the reins and he's the starting guy. That's a little bit what it kind of feels like here for Orchard Lake and Will Keene stepping into the spotlight now, really ready to blossom and take over and take ownership of not just the net, but the team ultimately. I think that team playing in front of him will have a ton of confidence. They've got some nice pieces. Kyle Kavk, I think I'm saying that right. He's a forward I like a lot. Julian Johnston. So there's some offensive weapons there to like. I don't know that any of them are super dominant from a statewide standpoint, but when you have that goalie playing behind you, it makes your job up front a lot easier. You can win games 2-1, 3-2, and you don't need that offensive firepower. You don't need to overwhelm people with a offensive onslaught there. So I think as strong as they are in net, it makes guys up front like Kev, like Johnston, makes their jobs a little bit easier up front as well. But ultimately, even with all that, I think the Eaglets win a ton of games. They were at 16 a season ago. I think they go way over that. I think they're in the hunt at the MIHL level in winning. I don't know how they're doing it now, if there's a league champion or not. They've got 3 divisions now, which is a different setup. So I don't know if I can say they'll contend for a league championship there, but I will say I think they contend and are in the hunt for a state championship come season's end. Number 7, I get into another MIHL team here with Brother Rice. Brother Rice is a team who's, I think, got a lot of question marks around it too. You don't lose Peter Rosa and get better. Like, you don't lose arguably the best player in the state and somehow get better overnight. Like, that's a tough void to fill. Now, obviously, Brother Rice being one of the best programs in the state, they're gonna find a way to make it work. They've got some good pieces returning. Listening to them speak at media day, they feel very strongly about their defensive core. They feel very strongly about Turner, England, and net. So that's a team, Turner even mentioned it. We're not going to win games 6-4, 5-2 this year. We're going to win games 2-1, 3-2. We're going to win those low scoring games. Or if we're going to win, that's how we're going to win. So it feels like a different Rice team than last year. Last year was a lot of firepower, a lot of flash and dash, track meet. I think this is going to be far more of a structured, disciplined, hard in the D zone. They may spend a lot of time in the D zone defending, but you're not going to generate quality opportunities. Time on ice and that riding time that we like to talk about throughout the course of the game, they may spend 60% of the time in their own end, but they're going to keep you to the outside. They're going to keep shots from the perimeter, and England will snuff those out and additionally make some saves you don't expect them to make. So they may get or perceive to be outplayed in a lot of games, but I think they'll turn around and end up winning those because of timely scoring, defensive structure, and then ultimately sound goaltending in net too. 21 wins from a season ago. They would probably have to win a state title, in my opinion, to go over that 21 win mark. I'm not prepared to do that just yet. So I have them going under 21 wins, but probably not by much. They're probably in that 18 to 19, maybe even 20 win window. And like I said, you get to Plymouth, you win a state title, that would probably put you over that 21 win total. Checking in at number 6, I got the Houghton Gremlins. They won 26 games a season ago. This is another team similar to Rice, similar to Flint Powers, graduated a ton and graduated heavy hitters, right? Cam Markham, Gabrick Carlson, those were guys that were amongst some of the best in the state in high school hockey. You get some guys like Mikey Millette coming back this year as seniors, but can they step into can they replace that amount of scoring? Not to mention Micah Stipech in year 1 as head coach. There's just going to be challenges. Houghton, obviously a very well-run, well-oiled machine over the last couple of years and really throughout the history of Michigan high school hockey. Coaching changes for anybody are challenges. It's just it's a different voice, it's different structure in the locker room, it's different practice regimens, things that Corey Markham for 25 years had kind of been the mainstay in that program, and the community and players and everything were accustomed to the way he was doing things. So Micah, admittedly, is kind of in a tough spot. But I think it's an area where very talented coach. I know he was involved with Team Michigan in the spring, knows his stuff. If there's ever someone to kind of fill that void and step in for Markham, I expect Micah to do a fantastic job. But that comes with growing pains. That comes with learning experiences. And you do that in the wake of a 26 win season. That's going to be tough to do. Not to mention the losses of Markham, Cam Markham, and Gabrick Carlson and some of those guys. So those are big losses to try and fill in. Plus, like I said, the just the pressure and experience of that first season can be a little challenging. But ultimately, I think they're going to win a bunch of games. I don't know that it's going to be 26. Obviously, in the hunt for the Great Lakes Conference Championship yet again, in the hunt for a very unique regional grouping there of all UP. I'm pretty sure it's all of the UP teams in one region. That's going to be very unique and a challenge there. So Houghton going to be in the hunt for all of that. There's just some question marks. I need to see what coach is like on the bench. I need to see what this team looks like under a new regime, and obviously filling in some of those key returner or key graduates. So at number 6, I do have Houghton going under that 26 win total. Number 5, I got Heartland, 22 wins from a season ago. I might have to walk this one back. On the graphic, I have them going under. 22 wins is a lot. Heartland's going to be in the mix. Division 1, similar to Rice, I mentioned for them to go over that win total, Heartland would probably need to win a state title. Not that they can't. I don't know that present day I'm ready to slot them in there. So I got Heartland going under that 22 win total. They're going to win a boatload of games. They could flirt with 22 and be in that 18, 19, 20 range. The KLAA is going to be super tough, maybe tougher than it's been in recent memory, because you have teams like Howell making a significant jump, Northville making a significant jump. Oh, by the way, both of those teams are in Heartland's division within the conference. So it's just not going to be an easy road. I know they're on top of that. Heartland and Brighton could potentially play each other as many as 3 times this in the regular season. not to mention a potential meeting in the playoffs should that unfold. So it's going to be a tough road against some really tough opponents. When the dust settles, you could see Heartland playing maybe the second or third toughest schedule in the entire state. So 22 wins is going to be tough to match. I do have them going under. They're ranked number 5. Number 4, this is one of my favorite teams too. I've talked about them a bunch this offseason. I got U of D Jesuit under Coach Paul Moretz there. They've done a fantastic job of just building that program and building it the right way, right? Like I liked to see the way their schedule developed and got a little bit harder each year, and the way they brought in prospects and developed them a little bit more with each coming year. This season, the guys they've got coming in, and the guys they have returning from last year, it's going to be an exciting time, I think, for U of D, and a chance for them to really make some noise in the playoffs and potentially make a state championship run, I think is very possible. So they had 14 wins a season ago. I think they go way over that. I would absolutely, I mentioned maybe some hesitancy there to put Heartland in the Final Four or in the mix seriously for a Division I state championship. U of D, I feel a lot more comfortable about slotting them into the mix at the state level. They get to Plymouth, they contend for a state championship. I think they will smash that 14 win total. If they do that, they could potentially be in that 18, 19, 20 win range by the time the dust settles. So I got U of D going way over that 14 win mark from a season ago. Number 3, Clarkston. This is another one I kind of got to think about. They won 21 games a season ago. I think that's 2 years in a row. They've won 20. No, what is it? I'd have to go back and look what it was 2 years ago. But 21 wins a season ago, that's going to be really hard to come by, especially I know their non-conference schedule is getting a lot tougher too than it has in years past. I believe they're in that showcase, Thanksgiving showcase with Brighton, with Heartland, with Forest Hill Central. There's not an easy game in the bunch with those 4, and you're going to get 2 games out of it. That's going to be tough sledding there for Clarkston. I think there's going to be some learning experiences there with those tougher matchups, with those really top 5, top 10 matchups that they're going to see. So it might hinder them from getting to 21 wins. Ultimately, playing in the OAA, I think they're at least a step ahead, if not a couple steps ahead of some other teams in the conference. So I do think, as tough as that non-conference is, they're going to make up for it with a bunch of wins there in the OAA, potentially even go undefeated in league play, which I don't think they even did last year. So they go undefeated in the OAA. They pick up some tough wins in non-conference. They make a deep playoff run, which I could very well see. I do have them actually going over that 21 win total from a season ago. Number 2, we're getting down to it. I've been at this for a minute. We're going on almost an hour. I got to try and wrap this up. Number 2, I got the Brighton Bulldogs, 22 wins a season ago. I'm gonna get myself in trouble here because I'm handing out way too many overs, probably not enough unders. I got Brighton going over that 22 win total. It won't be easy. I've talked about how hard the KLAA is going to be this year, how hard that division is going to be this year for Brighton. Ultimately, a lot of people have talked about it. I've seen it on Twitter. It's just Brighton's year. That's what everybody keeps telling me. It's Brighton's year. And while I believe that, man, that puts a lot of pressure on the kids in the locker room to try and come out and do it, every night, every game, and to avoid maybe some of those slip ups to a Novi on a weekday, or Plymouth on the road, or some of those types of matchups that can kind of exponentially become a lot tougher than maybe they should be, because you're putting that much pressure on yourselves and gripping the stick a little tight, because this is our year and we can't drop a game like this. So ultimately, there's a ton there for Brighton. Listening to Coach Kurt Cavisto talk about some of the returners, obviously Duffney and Pettit, Charlie Birchfield, but even on the back end, and having Ryan Watkins, Mason Blow, Levi Penella and Penella, and Ryan Nickerson. Like, they got 2 goalies that have been with the program for a couple of years now. They've got a lot of luxuries. They got depth up front. They've got returners at the blue line, and then 2 guys in net with a bunch of starts. Like, everything is shaping up and pointing to it being Brighton's year. I'm buying in. I'm jumping on the bandwagon. I'm on board. I got them going over 22 wins this season as the number 2 ranked team in my preseason poll. And number one, was there ever really a doubt when we started at 25? I've said it ad nauseum, and if you want to doubt or pick against or whatever you want to do, God bless you. But CC is the number 1 team in the state until they're not the number 1 team in the state. I've said it before. I'll continue to say it until someone can prove me otherwise. There's no reason to take them off the pedestal there and keep them at number 1 in the state. I will say, though, 29 wins from a season ago, you really can't have more wins than that unless you go perfect 30-0, which would really kind of be the last frontier for Catholic Central and Brandon Kalnicki. Like, what else is left to accomplish? I guess you could say that completely an unblemished perfect season. I don't think that happens this year. Full disclosure, I do have them going under that 29 win total, but it's kind of by default, right? Like 29 wins is absurd. Now, maybe they'll shut me up yet again and match or exceed that and do the unthinkable. But ultimately, CC feels like a little bit different of a team this year. I think they're deep up front. I think there's some, I'll say, question marks, not really question marks, but I want to see what their blue line looks like. I know Joe Bettle's in net, but I want to see what he's like at the high school level. I think he was a JV kid last year. I'm not positive, but I want to see what he looks like at the varsity level and kind of how he handles action. So I'll call it question marks there. I want to see what that looks like. And then ultimately, the MIHL is super deep this year. You've got Brighton and Clarkston and Heartland public schools that are all Division I, all going to be in the hunt there come playoff time. It's going to be a tough road for CC that ultimately I think would keep them from getting or surpassing that 29 win total. So I do have them going under, but until otherwise, they're the number 1 team in the state and they're the favorite to win Division I. So, all right. So that was it for the over-unders on win totals for the top 25. That was fun. I like that. We'll have to do some more stuff similar to that or in that same vein anyways. Going on an hour here. This is definitely the longest podcast we've done so far. So I'll wrap it up here. Again, if you've made it this far, you got to like and subscribe at this point. I mean, this is the type of content we've been putting out. You're only going to see more of it as the season unfolds. We'll get into picks. We'll start picking some games, highlighting some big matchups, and making predictions there. We'll get into maybe I'll bring back fantasy teams of the week, and we'll start highlighting some players. I think we'll have big performances, and then ultimately, as I teased last week, I will unveil the top 100 names to know in high school hockey sometime next week. I haven't set a date yet. I got to get graphics in place. I got to get the write-up done. There's a lot to do here before we hit publish. So more on that next week. So obviously like and subscribe here on YouTube. Wow. Trying that again. Like and subscribe here on YouTube. Follow on Spotify and Apple. Check out the website, peteyspicks.com. And obviously from there, you can connect with me on all of the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Threads. You can even email me at contactpeteyspicks@gmail.com. And we'll talk some hockey here as the season gets underway. So until next time, skate hard, have fun. See you guys at the rink soon.